So our speaker's been involved in the hobby for, I'd say, it's easiest to say coming up on 50 years. He's been on the board, president, vice president, you name it, of all kinds of associations, including the ACA, American Livebearing Association, and FAAS, Federation of American Aquarium Societies. He's worked in various wholesale and retail fish-related businesses, collected fish all over the U.S., Mexico, and Costa Rica. He's a fellow of the American Livebearing Association and a life member of the American Cichlid Association. Please help me give a warm Sacramento welcome to a warm Sacramentan, Richard Griffiths.
That's true, about 50 years. 1968, I was walking out of the Sears on a drizzly February evening with my girlfriend. And as I walked out of the Sears, there was a garden spot right next to it. Sears actually had tropical fish. And where she was staying, the guy had a 10-gallon tank sitting next to his chair and had some things in it. So I went in there and I bought a pair of neon tetra's for 15 cents total. That was including tax. Now, I didn't know anything about fish at all. It's a good thing I didn't buy convict cichlids. That would have been a little interesting. But I took them home and, like I said, it was a drizzly night, so my feet sort of got a little damp. I didn't quite step into the water yet. A week later, I found out there was a tropical fish club in town. I didn't know what that meant, so I went to it. I was sort of curious. And the rest is sort of, we got hook, line, sinker, fell into deep into the pool, I don't know what. I've been involved with fish since then, various times, places. Okay, this is about Swordtails and Platies. Not the same ones that your parents grew up with. Some of you are old enough to have parents way back when. Back in 1846, or excuse me, yeah, way back 1846. A couple of people were down in Mexico and Guatemala, and they were finding fish, and, sending them off to Paris and getting them to describe and identify things. But some of the fish that that we're not going to cover tonight, are things like the lobster, Balanosox balanensis, which can eat convict cichlids, has done that. I used to feed convict cichlids to these guys when I was breeding them. And of course, a guppy, a livebearing. They're pretty ones, but not something that is a swordtail. That's a Mexican swordtail, but it's a butterfly. Okay, Swordtails and Platies. They appeared on the evolutionary scheme of things a long time ago. I don't know, before my last birthday anyway. So, God, I can't even see these anyway. Let me get over here. Maybe I can see a little bit. They're tooth carps, live-bearing tooth carps. And what that means is they're like killifish, except they breed and produce live young. They don't lay eggs. They're relatively small. Males haven't got a podium. That's what makes them different. It's like being a mammal, except that they're a fish. So you can think of all the complications that occur with that. It makes it sort of interesting when you start talking about fish and breeding. There's no parental care. As the gentleman said earlier, you have an explosion of swordtails. It doesn't have to take care of except for feeding them. Parents aren't going to do much. Maybe eat them if they're not well fed. Swordtails and Platies are native to Mexico, Central America, and northern South America. The first ones that were found were way down south. Now there's 27 species, approximately. There may be 30. We keep discovering different things. Most of the wild species have come in through the work of Dr. Myron Gordon a long time ago in the 1930s, and Klaus Kalman, who succeeded Dr. Gordon at the American Museum of Natural History. Now he's retired as well. So what's interesting is that the research that was being done by Dr. Myron Gordon was on cancer. Fish have interesting research capabilities and possibilities, as we found out with egg sizes or other things. And it was sort of nice to have a country so close, though it wasn't the United States, you know, where you find minnows or some killifish and other things. But Mexico was pretty close. And the first ones were found down in this neck of the woods here. So doing research and knowing that there were fish available in the hobby, there were 6 species of fish in 1932. Now, an interesting problem here is, if you know that Sacramento is way up at the very top, it's 540 miles down to the border. Well, American Museum of Natural History is in New York and Columbia, and all of the universities there, and it's thousands of miles. So if you can think of a history lesson here of 1920s and 30s, and even before that, the kind of transportation that you have to worry about to get around. Dirt roads, United States, Mexico, ships, no planes. So travel was going to be very slow. So ichthyologists, when they were going anywhere, had to take a bus, a train, a car, a walk. So they were many times in many places that they had to go. This is what Mexico looks like in a slightly geographical terrain sort of a look. It looks a little rugged, looks a little green. But if you look there on the right-hand side, that's more green than the central part. It means there's more vegetation, more water. And roughly down that light color are mountain ranges, and also mountain ranges on the right. So there's an issue of drainage and tributaries and where fish can go. And as you know, they don't get up and walk typically from one place to another. Most fish don't. So the fish that we're talking about have this particular range of history and geography going pretty much down through there. So they're all pretty much in that neck of the woods throughout Mexico. And if you can see the blue lines there, that's what the rivers look like. And there's a lot of rivers, a lot of streams, a lot of mud puddles. And of course, a number of them are disappearing because of agriculture. And here is another map of Mexico. I didn't know you were going to get a geography lesson along with history. And this is what it looks like from a satellite. And if you think you're going to be taking a car in some of those, good luck. In Mexico, there's 500 fish species, approximately. So remember, there may be more today than there were last week, I don't know. Livebearing fish, there's 125 species, and it's a quarter of the fish, which is sort of interesting when you look at the biodiversity. There's 3 anableps species, and they're found on the east coast of Mexico. There are 40 gadeids, and those are livebearing fish. And then there are Bucillia, 82 of them. Well, 82 Bucillia, or Posilia, depending on which you prefer, or how you prefer the pronunciation. 27 of them are Swordtails and Platies. So there's a lot of Zivopheres, or swords, platies. Oop. Okay, maternal fertilization, male gonopodium. You know where they come from? On some of these slides you can read yourselves. The sword tail comes from, or for Zivopherean, comes from Ziphos and from Ferine. So that's how we get swordtail. It's been a popular fish for an awfully long time. And as you can see on that particular map, where the locations of specific species are. Now these are all the wild ones. Wild ones are distributed in rivers, a couple lakes, they like streams, Okay, one of the things that's been interesting is that go to the headwaters of the river, spring, wherever the water is coming out of the ground, and you're going to find a population of swordtails or platies usually. And then downstream through heavy rains, they get dispersed, they go downstream. Maybe they cross a couple ditches into another river. There's a little bit of disbursement that goes on with these fish through usual aquatic events, not volcanic events that may have occurred 40, 50 million years ago, which is probably how we got the first diversity groups of livebearers. Now, some species of platies and swordtails, or two species of swordtails, or two species of platies will coexist in the same area. Some of them don't crossbreed, some of them do. Hybrids are an interesting process of creating new species. And that's how we think, in many cases, a number of the sorts have developed. Now, this is how ichthyologists look at how it all goes together and how the fish sort of relate to one another. And we've seen this with other presentations. It's taxonomy at a level that is interesting, but for a practical purpose, for our purposes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Instead, it makes more sense to talk about them in southern swordtails, northern swordtails, and platies. Now, the southern swordtail is where we're going to start with first, because the first one was 1848, the first sword that was identified. And you'll notice that the spelling there, we always think of Helleri, or Zavaphorus helleri. It's really two I's. So you now have a spelling lesson. This is the rate of identification and describing of swordtails and platies over the years. And you'll notice that in 1930, way over here, let's see, there's about six species of platies and swordtails that have been known. And they've been collected by ichthyologists, travelers who were on a travel. They were travel loggers. They'd bring fish back and give them to somebody to raise. So hobbyists became involved in keeping some of these fish. What were they doing with them? Well, just like what we do with them, we throw them in a tank and hope they do something. And they do. And here again is that geography, and most of the ones in the early days were, let's see, the helleri are down here, and we got varieties and maculatus, the other platy. But here we have the swordtail, the end all to being a live-bearing swordtail. A couple weeks after I went to that tropical fish meeting, I went down to a tropical fish store, and that kind of a fish was in a tank, and it was like, wow, electric. The lights were just perfect. It was a lime green, sort of a color on the top, so I got a pair. I think they were $1.50 for the pair, which is pretty expensive back then. But of course, I'd also met a guy by the name of Guy D. Jordan, who was into cichlids, and as a result of that, I was also into cichlids, so I was having trouble trying to differentiate what I was keeping with where I was putting them. Okay, this is the flag bearer, if you will, of most of the swords. This is what we are familiar with in the beginning. And this is what also produced many of the color versions that we'll talk about.
Richard, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on the Sears that had the fish,
Yes.
and then you just mentioned Guy Jordan. So you grew up in San Diego?
Yes, I grew up in San Diego a lot, and I happened to be down there at that particular time. Yes.
So was the Sears that was that the one in El Cajon?
No, that was the one that was up in Hillcrest.
Okay, oh yeah.
No, but the...
I was just curious, because it was crazy. The Sears had, they had a whole tank of like 4-foot fire, 3-foot fire eels, and they had stuff you never see anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Now this fish is being kept at the, in Texas, at the Zoophorus Genetic Stock Center. It's about 50 generations, probably 55 by now. It's the longest kept species or version or variety of swordtail. And it's been inbred because, you know, sister to sister, brother, father to daughter, you know, back crosses. They've done some interesting genetic work there, but they don't have problems with what a lot of people would consider inbreeding. If you have a good healthy pair, this is a good healthy looking male, and a female that looks as robust as that, you can get, you know, 50, 100 young a month. The record is 248 out of the female. That was about 6 inches, which is a lot bigger than what the average size is. But the guy did water changes every other day. And at the auction, the guy and I were bidding together to try to outbid everybody else. And we stopped at $70. It was an old female. She may not have had more than another brood or two, but the fish was great. Okay, here we have some other versions, a slightly yellowy, more yellowish color. An interesting problem with swordtails. You go to the store and you buy them. I want a pair of swordtails, male, female. Well, that's great, because we think in pairs, typically. You know, cichlids, same thing. Killifish, same thing. Swordtails and Platies, they like to group together. Give me 2 or 3 males and 5 or 6 females. Give me 3 or 4 times as many females as males, because that's what they like. They like to be in large groups. Now, what you can see is the original up there, and you can see what is also a swordtail. A lot of genetic variation has occurred, and it's not the same as we've seen here in this country. This was developed in Singapore and came out about 5 years ago. It's a veil tail, lyre tail. It's got deep, deep red. It's really a very, very pretty fish and very hard to get hold of. Okay, how did they get here? Well, historically, here we've got 1846, 1847, when the Hellride was first described. We had some coming in. Then the 1866, some came from Central America. Wrong, they didn't come from Central America. But that's, you know, travel logs, and people just travel and say, well, that's where I got them. And I was down there somewhere. Who knows? 1867, we have a couple more coming in. 1902, 1904, there was some exploration going on. The Comanche Indians, hadn't been settled, and they used to roam from Oklahoma down to northern Mexico, you know, killing folks and maybe stealing horses and things. So it wasn't really very safe to go down to collecting. After about 1880, 1890, the West is sort of being won, and travel was starting to be a little more accessible in Central and South America and Mexico. So there was some exploration going on. And Seth Meek, a theologist, used to travel by train. He would get off at every little watering hole, little creek, little spot, and they'd unload his stuff and pick the next train up the next day, but he would go collecting, and that's how some of these fish found their way into the hobby by him and other theologists. And by 1930, Dr. Myron Gordon was looking for fish. He'd been working with aquarium fish, but he needed to get research capability with wild stuff, because he never knew what a hobbyist was going to keep in the tank, what might get polluted by crossbreeding. So he started his expeditions in 1932. That was sort of interesting when he went, because there he is on a horse. Well, you don't see the shotgun that he carried, because there were banditos. There were still bad guys running around. You see the car that he had, and and is sort of washing it there.
Chip has that car right now.
Now what's interesting is for a 1.5 kilometer drive, which took 30 minutes, they had to stop and rest for 30 minutes because of the terrain. So sometimes you could get 2 or 3 hours worth of travel in a day. Sometimes you couldn't. And there he is up in the mezzanine with tanks and stuff. And we owe an awful lot to him and a guy by the name of Cassanderside, who in Germany said to Dr. Gordon, no, the Platies with the black melanophores, that's what you got to study. And that's indeed true. The black melanophores that you see on some of these fish is what is the cancerous thing that they were looking for. This is some of the terrain and habitat that some of the fish come from. If you'll notice right here, a sort of greenish algae, not very deep, rock, no plants. There's an Aquarius there. I think he's from. I think this is a guy from England or Germany. Guys from England and Germany and Holland, they go down there a lot more than we do, except for sickly guys like that. And here we have a couple of other places. You see a couple of places with, as you can see, some aquatic plants and weeds and things. And then you also see big open river. So the diversity of where they come from is rather intriguing because some of them are covered, some of them are fast flowing. And here's what we particularly seem to want for our fish. We like to see them in planted tanks because green is beautiful, right? And here's a couple more. And that's okay. Having fish like that is fine. But if you look at what they came from, they like algae. They like to eat little things that eat algae. They like to go looking under litter, that is leaves, and finding out little critters that are down there. They're munchers. They're grazers. They eat all day long. Females spend probably 60–70% of their time grazing. In the aquarium, we don't feed like that. We don't keep them green. Well, you guys don't, I do. I sometimes bring in green rocks and let fish nibble. The problem with what we do is we feed in the morning, go through the fish room or a couple tanks, come back at night. We may give them brunch food. We may give them something else. So we really underfeed them a lot for what they really need. 1935, this is what they had for coloration in fish. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of photographs from this particular period because photographs were expensive to put into books. So there's these drawings. And William T. Ennis, some of you may recall historically, he was sort of a pioneer in writing fish books, or a fish book that talked about fish. And his comment there is at the bottom. He thought that these fish were really good for the hunter. 1960 or thereabouts, actually earlier, late 50s, Thelma Thompson in Los Angeles, she and her husband had fish tanks. And all of a sudden, there's sport. There's a sport in one of her tanks. And that sport had this really fin. Most of the fins that you would see on a swordtail that may have been red would only come up about here because that's the natural finnage on a swordtail. She kept them. She started developing them, back breeding to son to mother, daughter to father, and she got a strain going. And these were brick reds. And they were doing fine. And she put a couple ads in TFH, Aquarium magazine, and she called them the Thompson hyphen, and or Simpson hyphen, excuse me. And we were selling a little bit, but she belonged to the Los Angeles Aquarium Society, which is no longer in existence, but was a great club. Had probably, well, had Gene Wolfsheim, if any of you know who that is, and a lot of other well-known breeders and fish keepers. And she would distribute some of her fish to these people, and they would breed them up. So there was quantity being developed. Because she had, her room wasn't maybe half the size of this room, maybe a little smaller. Anyway, topsail, sail fin, it got developed. Well, guess what? A little bit later, Don and Orrin Adams, down in Florida in their fish farm, they're throwing fish out in the ponds, and these ponds are probably 100 feet by 25 feet by 10 feet deep, and come out, harvest the fish. Hey, this one's got a funny tail. It's got a wire tail. How odd. Oh, we've got genetic diverseness, excuse my speaking, cropping up. We've gone from a little bit of wild colors to red colors. Now we're getting some finish. And then we get a high fin, relatively high fin, and a lyre tail. With a little bit of work after the Adams have come out and the fish are being developed and picked up by people. And then we have sort of a back cross to a normal colored one. So we're doing some interesting genetics as hobbyists already. Been doing some back crosses to greens, to not reds, and getting interesting things. Now, an interesting thing that you might not know is that all of the color in swordtails or platies is because swordtails and platies got crossed together. And so they're sort of a hybrid fish from the 1930s. So any of the colors that you see that have been developed have come from the fact that they have been hybridized, as opposed to being a single species. But if it has a swordtail, it's a swordtail. If it doesn't, it's a platy. And it could be 3/4 swordtail and 1/4 platy, depending. And again, here's that fish. Pretty red. Okay, the southern swordtails. Now we're going to go back to the wild a little bit and talk about some of the fish. Alvarezi, Zibophoros alvarezi. It's about the same size as a normal swordtail, but if you look at it, it's a little deeper body. It's got two strong lines, and look at that tail. It's longer than a swordtail, a normal swordtail. That was pretty impressive. We now have a different fish that looks like a swordtail, but it's bigger. And it was named for Jorge. I won't even try to pronounce it right now. My lips are dry. Clemency. 1959. We waited a long time to get this one. And this is another pretty one. But if you look at the body, this is even deeper. And look at the lines, they're even more pronounced, they're thicker. And it comes from, as you can see, the Rio Saba, or San Carlos. We got these from Dr. Robert Rush Miller from the University of Michigan. And they came through Detroit originally. And were diversified into the Greater Lakes area, and American Livebearing Association later spread them around. It's endangered. So it's always good if you get these to breed them, keep them, spread them around. Zibophoros mayi is a recent introduction. It's a recent discovery 12 years ago. And it's a big one. It's long. And if you look, if you look there, it's still got those lines, but now there's 3 of them, 4 of them. I got my first pair, actually I got 6 of them in 1986. I got them from Ross Sokoloff, who had a fish farm. Never would have known he had a fish farm. It was 900 pools, 5,300 tanks. And I used to go collecting down in the Honduras, Mexico and Guatemala. And he and Jaap van de Grief brought these up, and I got these from Parrish, from Jaap, and they were just really noble looking. And when I put them in my swimming pool, I had a 20,000-gallon swimming pool that wasn't being used. They grew very well. A lot of mosquito larvae, a lot of algae. And they are the deepest bodied of the fish. They are named for the Indians, and this is a recent change in the naming structures of some fish, especially the Zoophytes. It was named after something that was Mexican. Zoophytes mixi. And what is the mixi? Well, they're named after an Indian tribe where these fish were found. And unfortunately, that's the best photo that's available. I've had all of the Swordtails and Platies, but I'm not a photographer anymore. I gave up photography in 1974. So all these are borrowed photos. But it's interesting that these fish have a little teeny sword. If you take a look, it's only about 1/4 of an inch. And it's about 1.5 inches long, so it's a small sword. Monticolis. I sort of like this one. It's only about 2 inches, a little bit bigger. This is a different kind of a dorsal in that they have a square dorsal in the males. And that's different because all the other ones, the dorsal is taller in front and shorter in the back. And this is a rather interesting fish. It's the only Zoophyte that does not cross, does not hybridize, and it's very slow growing. It looks like it's sort of like a clementine with its very sturdy body, but it's not related. And here's a picture of a pair of them. And it can take, well, the female will show a gravid spot when she's not pregnant. And it will be there for a long time. And it takes a long time to both raise these and to get them pregnant. And they're very difficult to breed. If you like challenges, this is the one for you. Now to the north, and of course, if we were in Australia, the south would be the logical place to start. You know, the north, we always like to start in the north, but I reversed it. We've got a much bigger group of swordtails. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different ones, including a nove. We've got a species that we don't know what it's going to be yet. We'll talk a little bit about that one. And there may be a couple more out there. This is a rather impressive fish, but you'll notice that instead of those long lines, there's some zigzags. It's different. And it was discovered and named by the describers after the guy who found it. Sometimes that happens. Somebody gets lucky. This is also called the false Montezuma, or Montezuma. It was discovered once, or misdiscovered, and misidentified. And we went through about 50 years of miscommunication about what this fish was. Now here's a different color morph of it. If you look at the previous group. Previous one, that sort of a lighter color, the zigzags, and the more orange dorsal. And then you have more spotted dorsal and darker. And it's an interesting problem. Females, well, males go out and they like to flash their dorsal. Hey, baby, here I am. I got a big dorsal. Come see me. Well, you know, she doesn't like that. She's not looking at the big dorsals. She prefers something else. Small ones. And you go, wait a minute, I'm showing off. How come you don't like me? Well, it's an interesting problem. But also what's interesting is that males, 3 out of 4 in the wild, are sterile or have low sperm count. So maybe they know, maybe the females know something that the males don't. Maybe, maybe it's a secret at the bar that the guys aren't telling.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you go back to that last photo? A lot of times in swordtails, when they have that big black blotches,
Yeah.
they're really prone to cancer. Is that one of them?
You mean like up in there?
No, on the tail, on the caudal. On the male
Yes.
especially.
That can be. There are a number of cancer-specific / species-specific issues going on with a number of things that cancer researchers have been working with. And I could not tell you if that is a specific one that deals with that.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was one of them.
It's more of the mottled color that the melanophores that are seem to be on just individual scales as opposed to that. But I can't be certain because I have not done it.
Is that, have you kept this one?
Yes, I kept this one.
Is that spot typical or is that an individual thing?
Well, I had more of these
Oh, okay.
than these. This is I think, out of a different river system than what I had. I had all of my swordtails or platies, the wild versions, anywhere between 1974 to 1992. So I haven't kept a wild specimen, except for Zivaphorus mayi and Calvin. I haven't kept the wild swords for 20 years. Only when new ones have been introduced have I gotten and played with them. Because I like breeding fish. But it's an interesting problem out in the wild when fish are going, hey, I don't dig what you're selling. And we have that in a number of different places. Now again, here is a large river basin. You got stuff on the side there. You probably got fish up in here, one in here, and probably in here. And so how do you get to go out and collect them? Well, you use nets, use signs or seines, seines, and then your pronunciation. You hire kids. Sometimes you hire fishermen. Go out and collect fish. Sometimes when you're collecting fish, you bring them up on a net and they die. There are fish that you bring them up and they'll drop dead right in front of you. If they won't even drop dead, they'll just be dead. Sad, you can't collect all the good fish that way. This likes moderately cool water, the continents. I had a tank of these in a 10-gallon tank, 6 feet above my head. And all I could do was just throw fish food at them as I passed by. I looked up there one day, and in a 10-gallon tank, I had about a gallon of water and about 9 gallons of these guys. It was an incredible reproduction. After I got a few, they just decided that they were going to explode on me, and they did. Now the Rio Hoja Frio, cold eye, they like cool water. Being in the top of my fish room in Southern California, it was probably 85 degrees. I don't know why they decided that that was good for them. But I believe in benign neglect, and my fish seem to be. Here's another color version of it. And you'll notice that there's some interesting striping going on. Again, you don't have the hard red bar, but you've got the zigzag, and you've got a darker bar. You'll notice it's one sword. These guys will go from 64 to 82 degrees. 82 during the summer, 64 in the winter when the rains come. So they're pretty variable, pretty good. You see that spot right in there? That's a cave. And it's probably mid-season, the water's up. But you could, when it's dry season, the water's down about 4 or 5 feet, you can walk into that cave. You can walk in the water and see if you can collect fish. By the way, These fish do not worry about whether it's winter, summer, fall. They'll breed anytime, anywhere that they have the opportunity, and they've been fed well in life, or in their tanks. Xiphophorus cortezi, an interesting fish, another one that's got that interesting zigzags, you know. Again, it likes relatively lower temperatures, and it can deal with 7.2 to 8.8. So they all work up here in the Sacramento area. And again, this is one of those fish that was named for somebody in Mexico. Well, sort of. Hernando Cortez. We remember him as going and conquering Mexico. So it's sort of named for him, for something in Mexico. They like water that's about 3 feet deep. Most of us keep tanks that are 12, 14 inches deep. They could really stand to be in a 100-gallon tank, 3 feet deep, 1,000-gallon tank that Rich has, without the big fish. Anyway, and again, here we have some red, much redder. Here we have one that's, are they different species? And we're still calling Cortezi? That's a question that is under investigation. We finally figured out what the fish was in about 1979, 1980, as you can see here. But the fish has been in the hobby for a number of years. Xiphophorus kalmani. This is named for after Dr. Klaus Kalman, who did a lot of that research on cancer and describing fish and worked with the Xiphophorus. And that's where we got a lot of the fish in the last 30 years was through him. And since he took over from Dr. Gordon, he would bring fish to the American Livebearing Association conventions and hand them out, put them on the auction table, and discovered breeders like myself would go and get them, and then we would raise them, bring them back the next year, and get them on the hobby. Now, if you see the name, Capricorn Swordtail, you'll see it again for a different species. That's because this is sort of named that, but it's also known as the brass swordtail. I prefer the brass swordtail because it's a little more descriptive. If you look at the color, it's more olive colored or more brassy, as opposed to calico, even though it comes from the lake. This is where it comes from. This is where we found it. Over in there. So you never know when you're looking where you're going to find fish. Something happens. Oh, there we go. Xiphophorus malinche, or malinche, depending on your pronunciation. Well, that skeleton on the bottom, see how it goes really red? That's a red version from Panzas, Guatemala. And this is not really northern, it's really kind of southern. But it's a pretty fish. It's diverse. This is the Montezuma. And if you look at the tail, it's very long. It's interesting to a lot of people because that tail is 7/8 of the length of the body, approximately. So you've got, what, 2.5-inch fish, you've got a 2-inch tail. You see a lot of short tails today, and they've got a very short tail. This is a long tail. It likes weedy places, it likes a lot of vegetation, it likes to eat green stuff. And here's another picture of it. And look at the way the tail bends up. And this is where they found it, under that log up there, and up in here. Intrepid adventurers finding fish where I would not have thought to go. Because fish should be, visible in my pond or my aquarium, not under reeds and stuff. Another fish, this has not red, like dark stripes going this way. This is multilineatus, meaning many lines. It has 4 different size versions. You can breed them and have a tank full of 4 different kinds of males. They're male looking. They're going to be all males. They're going to be looking different. And there are different populations that have been developed where they're almost all small and larger than them. So people have been playing a little bit with them. And again, we have some interesting stripes going this way, but again, not red. And this is Nezaquano. This is one of my favorite fish. And this was misidentified a lot in the early days. And if you look at the dorsal is very fan-shaped, very large. It's unfortunate we have not yet developed a fancy species from this. And it was first brought in 1964. It was the American hobby of 1970. And here's some more. This is a yellow form as opposed to the previous version. And here's the spotted. Now this probably has more interesting cancer research occurring with it than something that was less colored. These guys are some of these have almost no black spots on them. And this was named after a Aztec emperor or king. Nice that they did that. Negrensis, meaning black, because it's pretty dark. And it's a very relatively small, likes moderate low temperatures. And this has also various size groups. You'll find them small, you'll find them larger, up to the 2.5 inch size. And you'll also find different colors. I had this version in a tank that was again 6 feet up. It was right next to a south-facing window. And this color here is an iridescent lavender that is just incredible. I've had these as well, and they're sort of a chocolate red color. I put them up in the same tank later. They didn't turn lavender. So whether these are a different variety, subspecies, or species, who knows? And this is one of the small ones, because if you look at the name, pygmaeus means little. So it's a little fish, and you'll notice there's not a lot of tail there. There's not. And again, this one's not easy to breed. You need to get quantity to get quantity. Another version is lighter colored. And the color here is about the same, but lighter. This is the species Nova that I was telling you about. This one was found by Dr. Gil Rosenfeld and his group who do some research down in Texas. It's a very pretty color here. Unfortunately, it has not yet been discovered. And when they had these out in a large pool that was being pumped water out of the ground by a generator that went out, a whole bunch of these died. So the research is a little bit slow at the moment. And that's what it looks like when they've got it ready for dissection. And you'll notice that dorsal is very up, very square. It's very different than the other sorts. So we don't know if it's going to be like a Buchmanni or a Lynch. Don't know where it's going to be belong yet. Platies are easy. There's only 9 species. You don't have 18 species to worry about. The two that were in the hobby in the very beginning, Geographic varieties and Maculatus. Almost any platy that's a colored platy today that you get a Mickey Mouse or any colored one, is going to be a combination of those two and a swordtail to get the color. But they're going to be mostly those varieties. The first one is the Bophoris Andrews, also known as a spiketail or Andrews Platy. And it likes the medium range again, but it likes slow waters. Most of the platies seem to like slower waters. Swords like faster, deeper, more movement in water. And platies, as a result, can tolerate less oxygen in water. Swords can. Platyandus is another one of those where I neglected them in a tall tank. And I pulled out 70 one day after I discovered that I had been feeding them, not really caring about them. They're nice little fish. They're very hardy. They don't take much care. And if you put them in a tank, they'll be fine with little fish. And they've been extinct since 1961. So all that there is are in the hands of the Zophophorus Stock Center or in hobbyists or in cancer research. So if you get them, keep them. Zophophorus evelynii, a nice fish. It's got, again, those funny up and down marks, very similar to the northern swordtails, which means that these are probably more related than we think or we know. But there hasn't been a lot of discussion about that to really work out who begot who and where. There's the Zophophorus gordoni, named after Dr. Gordon. And you really want to keep these in this single species tank, 20, 25 gallon tank as well, 40 gallon works well. And again, there's a couple different variations of this. This is a pregnant female. This one is just showing a little bit of spot. And this one is typically darker. This version here is a little lighter. This is where they come from. And unfortunately, because of agriculture in Mexico, this area is being drained, just like Sacramento is, because agriculture requires water. And that spot right there used to be much bigger. Yeah, over there. But it only has a little bit amount of water there, and all the little tributaries and streams and stuff in the area are all dried up. So it was one of the early mortalities. Zophophorus meyeri, named for Manfred Meyer in Germany, who's done a lot of work with livebearers. And it was one of the recent ones, 30 years ago, roughly 30 years ago. It likes cool water. So you keep these at low water. You don't have to keep them at tropical temperatures. They do fine outside if it doesn't get over 80 something. So same with Zophophorus milleri, who's named for Dr. Rush Miller. He's done an awful lot of work with fish in Mexico, livebearers in Mexico, cichlids in Mexico, and he worked out of University of Michigan. And you can get, if you got a good female, you can get about 50 young. So one successful breeding, even if you pay $24 for a pair, if you get that, you could make $50 or $100 real quick. So it's a nice breeding opportunity. Again, this has an interesting depth. It likes 3 foot. So it likes to hang at the bottom when it's in a tank. I've kept these in 50-gallon tanks, and it likes to be down at the bottom. Zophophorus maculatus. That's the one that's been around for an awful long time. But it's a lot like Achilles in behavior, what it likes to do in the wild. It likes roots, it likes to hide. It's a sort of an ambush predator for little things that come by. And you can find it in the wild with the old hellround. And because it's been around for a long, long time, and people will go to the store and they'll say, "Mommy, I want that fish." And you know, you get that fish for the kid, and after a while you get pretty tired of taking care of the tank for them. Oh, you know, there's a pond out there, there's a lake out there, and I just gonna get this fish. As well as in southern Texas or southern Nevada, some dealers were taking fish out there and dumping them into some springs and letting them repopulate, killing off some of the natural fish there. So you can see where these fish have ended up being out there. That's a bad thing. It's got rid of some desert pupfish of various kinds. And then we have the varieties, Platy, probably the most well-known. And again, you see the striping there, so it goes along with those northern swords. And you can see that even here in this pregnant female, though she's not quite ready to pop. This one likes shallower water. And again, the oil field, it likes cool water. And that's why we found it in the beginning, is people are walking through that area. And let's see, I don't know if I can show you the film of this in a while. But this is what turns on cancer researchers. And this is what got them interested in studying them to begin with. And what developed the Swordtail Platy hobby is researchers going off and looking for more of these kinds of fish to find out why there's cancer, what the tumors can be, what can we do to solve them. And there's probably been 2,000 papers in the last 20 years because of this kind of research. And here you can see where they've been let out in all sorts of places. And because of hurricanes and fish farms and flooding, they're all over there. You can go to Florida, and if you don't mind braving snakes and alligators, you can find these guys in the rivers, canals, in these streams that you find. Down here in Southern California, you can find them just about anywhere. I think they were even in the Salton Sea. This is one of my favorite ones too. This is Ziffo. It's a humpback. It's got a very odd shape. Much different than what we've seen in others. It's pretty much straight. It's a humpback. And it's sort of deep-bodied as well. And this one really likes cool water. I've kept these outside in Southern California winters. And those winters can be low 70s, high 60s. Didn't have to worry about raccoons and possums coming by to take care of them, which I have to do up here. Now, we've seen the wild of both versions. We go back to looking at the color stuff. This is what it was in the 1930s. Now we have fish that are different. They're much more different than that. We have over 40 varieties of just the Platy. There's red and golds. There's gold, mostly gold and reds. There's just red tails, black. We have some high-fin varieties. And you can tell this one is pretty red body. This one's just got a little tail. Here we've got black. We've got a different kind of veil. So people have been developing all sorts of variations. This is how some of the people have looked at doing things. with some of the platies and some of the swords. How to cross them. What's interesting is doing a cross between two species, back crossing to one of the parents, or in some cases, well, I just bred this and I now have a hybrid. Let's see if I can breed it to another fish. It's either a hybrid or a different species. And we've been doing that in the hobby as well as in cancer research to see what happens. This is what's happened in some of the fish farms. We've got a neon color. This is more of a iridescent color here with the red, and here we have one that's even brighter. But also we have some different hybrids. This is the birch manai. If you remember the birch manai, it was a wild one. This work didn't start until about 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And we now have elongated male tails that just go very wild. And now we have a wire tail, a high fin. What's interesting and is a problem is that with these kinds of fish, because that gonopodium, they don't breed. You know, he could be showing all he's got, the female, but he can't do anything. People who work with these fish have to milk the sperm from the male and then inject it into the female to get a reproducible fry. Because while it may be long, it's not very strong. And here's a couple more hybrids here. This is with a swordtail, and I thought this was just really interesting. Dr. Roy Levine, who works back east, has been working with a lot of these, and this is one of his fish. And I just think this is just, it's sort of like a guppy that's got a tail that's really too big. Because a tail, any tail, is a drag. It's a drag coefficient. So male swords have a more difficult time swimming than one of the shorter swords. So this problem, this guy isn't going to do much, and he's really not going to do anything. So you got to have a breeder who's willing to use a pipette, a syringe, get his hands wet, use a microscope, do some work. There's some more hobby crosses here. Here is a slightly larger dorsal fin. Here's a dorsal fin that's very long and now very full. And some more hybrids here. This is what the original looked like. Now the basics for breeding: give them water, regular water changes, feed them well, give them 6, 8, 10 feedings a day with flake food, a couple times a day with brine shrimp maybe, or daphnia, mosquito larvae. Give them some algae. Let them bring some rocks in that have been out in the pond or something. Leaf litter. They do well. Keep 3 to 4 males and 10, 12, 15 females, and you'll have more fish than you could sell because they will do that. And that goes for the fancy ones as well. If you get a fancy one, put 2, 3, 4 males and 10 females. But also, the single most important thing beyond changing water is being ruthless. You take 2 ideal fish that you want to grow and have something with. If it doesn't measure up to your ideal, you feed it to the cichlid tank, or the Polaris tank, or the catfish tank, you know, because what you want is pure strains, pure work. So what Dr. Levine, what many of the people who I've talked to they're ruthless. They will get maybe 10% of what they produce out of the female. That would be good enough to keep, sell, work with, all more with. What I have found is if you put them, leave females in a tank with floating plants or plants, and you fed them well, you've got babies. I've never had to use a breeding net, a breeding trap. I just keep them going. And some people say that they're cannibals, that they'll leave their young. Well, if you're not feeding 6, 8, 10 times a day, yeah, we eat 2 or 3 or 5 times a day. You get hungry. They do too. So feed them well, change water, give them floating and bottom plants. And this is some action you might see if you're sitting in your fish room. And you see it in a couple species here. Zoophorus hilleri, Zoophorus mei. See how the males are crossing tails like that? They're sword fighting. Now, they're not sword fighting like, Rathbone would do in one of the Robin Hood movies, but what they're doing is they are doing threat displays, showing up. I'm bigger and better than you are. I'm raising my dorsal bigger and better. See, girls, I'm big and bad. It's like going out to a bar and you see some guys who've had a beer or two, and they're big and bad. They're trying to show off. That's what they're doing. They're trying to attract the females. So you might see this. Now there's 70 strains of wild versions out there. You can get them. Zoophorus Stock Center, they charge about $15 a pair, plus shipping, which can be expensive, or if you drive down. Hobbyists have them. Where can you get them? There are other places. American Livebearing Association, they have a convention once a year. A lot of these fish show up. Aquabid, you're going to pay a penny for them, but they're available. A lot of the same members, by the way, who go to the convention, they will get $5 or $6 a pair for them. You'll get $25 a pair at Aquabid. So it depends where you want to go. You can sometimes get them in a fish store. Rarely, because most of the time these are not sold to fish stores except by a hobbyist, and there's not a lot of hobbyists on the West Coast who are selling these kinds of fish anymore. So you'd be lucky. You can get them from Miami Swordtails, which is a place in Miami. You can get them from Goliath Farms down in Texas, both the wild version and the fancy ones. And of course, if you really want to be your own man or woman, you go down to Mexico and you collect fish. Some of us have done it. You deal with snakes, fish. Not many banditos these days, but you deal with high prices of gas, sometimes dusty roads. Sometimes you are told where the fish are, and you swear you've gone to the place 10 times, you can't find it. Until somebody who happens to be a native of the area walks over and says, oh yeah, you go this way and that way, and you're right there. And you find the places. Finding them on your own can be exhilarating, fun, expensive. Because if you drive down, it's a lot of gas. If you fly down, it's still a lot. And depending on who you go with and how you share a room, it can be expensive. So a swordtail that might cost you $25 an aquabid might cost you $1,500 if you went down there on your own. But think of the photos, the times and tales, and if you're a guy and you went with your wife, you can tell her, you can tell the guys all the stories, you can tell the wife the other stories. And if you're a woman who's gone down there, we've had a couple of women from this club go down to Mexico. I'm not sure what their stories are, but you know them as they're in the cichlid hobby, so you know who they are.
One thing to remember about collecting your own fish,
Yes.
you probably know this because you've done it. Fish that are out in the open get eaten, so look places where you can't see them.
Oh yeah, under the logs, in the reeds, collect the little ones. Hopefully you can identify them. Because sometimes, like I said, there might be two species together. So you pick out the babies because there they are, but you don't know till you hope. I had that problem with Prochyliopsis fish. Didn't know what they were until I got them home. They grew up. So, yeah, finding them in all those dark places under rocks and in reeds, in scummy water. It's fun. But you'll notice that if you remember the guy that was bending over that rock, he was relatively young, he was in his 30s. That's when I was doing this. I'm not going to go do that now. I don't like scummy water. I don't like the snakes. I don't like dusty roads. And I can't drink beer anymore. So what good is it for me to go down there? You know? And in Costa Rica and some places in Mexico, you get too much formaldehyde with beer anyway. And I want to thank all these people. These are the people that I won't say coerced. I asked them if I could politely use their photographs because they took better photographs than I did because, as I said, I don't do photography anymore. I break cameras, either when I use them or shots are taken of me. So I hope that you've got insurance on the camera there. But a lot of these people, Derek Lambert used to go, he's dead, he died about 10, 15 years ago. He was a collector doing stuff. These guys are all the same. I don't think Roy's done any collecting. He may have. Langhammer hasn't. And we all know Juan Miguel. He collects goes and plays everywhere. He knows more about fish in Mexico than anybody else probably today. And of course, you know Rick. And there's a couple other people here who have also been down there. They've been fun corresponding with these people. And as you know, we have a couple of people here who study fish, and you can talk to them just like a regular person. You can email them. These guys do too. They'll answer questions. It's been a fun hobby. The 50 years that I've been traveling around it, talking to these people and getting to know them. Everywhere from George Barlow and Paul Loisel to Ted Platy, who lives in New Jersey. This can be fun. Swordtails can be fun. It doesn't want to move. I got one more slide.
Are you sure?
I did.
Not anymore.
It was eaten by a Balanosaurus.
No, it was my pet dragon. I keep a dragon for the big ones. Anyway, that's what I've got. Thank you. Well, I know I didn't go through and tell you wherever they came from. I didn't tell you the temperatures that they came from, because the slides are there. You're going to be seeing this on the website in a month or so, so you can look at it there if you're curious or you're interested. You can take a look at the pictures that are even more detailed. And you go out on the internet and find the same pictures that I found, or talk to the same people I found, because they're all out there. The internet is nice because it allows you the opportunity to go out there and see things. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the Swordtails like fast-moving water.
Yeah.
So I got a 30-gallon tank that's got a...
30 gallons, you said?
Yeah, it's a 30-gallon tank, 35-gallon tank. That's got a chemical filter. It's a box filter. That's in the one corner, like the front left corner of the tank. Would there be any advantage for the Swordtails if I were to put another filter across angles, on the opposite corner of the tank, going in the opposite direction of the outspill?
Well, I use outside filters because they give that power push, or I've used power heads, and I keep it on one side of the tank, just because that's, now they're swimming upstream, philosophically, that's their orientation, so it helps, not that it really matters for orientation, I just do it because it seems to me to be practical, to use a power filter.
So you put them all on the same side of the tank?
Yeah.
Where it goes all way?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And then if I have to put them on the front of the tank, they'll hit the back side faster than the other side, so it gives them a little bit of current, like being in an eddy. Because some of these guys like eddies. Some like quiet pools. The platies like quiet pools. Swords like faster water. It just depends on which fish it is. And if it's a colored variety, you've probably got 3/4 of a platy in there. Who knows what kind of a sword? Probably a haloride.
The red velvet.
Yeah, so, after 60 years of being mishmashed together genetically, by the way, we don't know what causes the red color in the lines of the fish. We don't know what really does it on
Felt tips and
So, by the way, if you want redder color in your swords, get some Daphnia, feed the Daphnia a little paprika, or if you raise baby brine shrimp, feed them a little bit of spirulina, and they'll get redder. That's why they do well outside in eating green stuff. Any questions? Thank you.